Ahoy! Joe Buddy Hambone here, and I'm back again with a brand new coupon code from our friends over at Noble Night Games. This time we got a long one for you. It's Ring of Warmth, and it's good from now all the way through February the 28th, and it will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Noble Night Games. That's right, the code's going to last a long time, and it's a long code as well. It's Ring of Warmth to get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Noble Night Games running through February the 28th. It's a perfect time to get more games after the holiday season, and if you haven't yet, why not check out Noble Knight's trade-in program? I just did it myself. It was super easy, and now I have room on my shelves to put more games. And when I buy those games, I'm going to buy them from Noble Night Games. I'm going to use the code Ring of Warmth, and it's running now through February 28th from our friends over at Noble Night Games.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and today I'm flying ham solo. Stu had a scheduling conflict, so I'm running this episode by myself, but I'm not alone. From Feral Indie Studios, I have Charles Ferguson Avery and Alex Coggon here to talk about Zemo. Hey, everybody, how's it going?
Going good.
Great.
We are busy, shall we say.
I'd have to say you're both very busy because this is a major undertaking for those listening at home. In the month of February, Zine Quest is normally run by Kickstarter. This year, they're not doing it. So in its place, a bunch of indie creators stepped up to the plate. They got a ton of indie creators together and are really making a splash in the publishing world by bringing people that would have normally been kind of waiting for that promotion to come now back to the month of February, back to making zines, back to getting people excited about small press and indie publishers. And it's actually blown up into something a lot bigger than maybe you both could have imagined it'd be, right?
Yeah, I think my friend John put it best. There's been a lot of pressure building, and I don't think that we didn't necessarily take the reins of anything. We merely popped the cork, and we can't put it back on at this point, and in the best way possible. So
why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Zemo?
Well, I would like to say that the origins of Zemo pretty much started the night that Charlie came home from his day job, and he rushed up to the studio, and I believe it was right after Kickstarter had announced that, they were toying with cryptocurrency, and he rushed to the studio and he looked at me and he's like, "We have to do something." And I said, "Okay." And that began more or less the building of the groundwork for it, of what does the community need? What does the community not currently have that is keeping us very fractured, very isolated? And how can we remedy that? So it really began with just figuring out what the structure needed to be and what we as creators and members of this community could provide. And then honestly, it became, once you kind of, like, as Charlie said, once the cork popped off, there were so many other people who came and offered their services. They're like, "Hey, I can do this and I can do that." And, so graciously allowed us to absolutely utilize their strengths, their talents, their skills, and to build it into what it is. And we still continue to. It's like, I would say, like, the heart of it is like the community's pure passion.
yeah, we are just, at this point, we are just a small part of it. Tony has been putting together workshops. Sam Sorensen put together the Discord. Nuclear Obelisk was also a part of that. Part of me thought we were going to be kind of running this, and we were going to do it out of goodwill, but now we're just a cog in the machine at this point, and that's been just phenomenal to see.
Well, I think goodwill is the right word for it, because there is a lot of energy behind people helping people, creators helping creators. Initially, Charlie, when you and I were talking about it, the way it was appearing in my mind was, okay, this is going to be, Kickstarter's Zine Quest has been so big for 3 years. Now there's a vacuum. We want to fill it with creators helping creators and supporting small independent creators to help their dreams come true and get their zines out and get the promotion. And it's definitely snowballed. I mean, I was on that Discord since day one. And now for those listening at home, if you join the Discord, it really does do a lot of the legwork to demystify what it is to be an independent publisher. Because there's a lot of questions that you just can't get the Google search right with, like trying to find the right words for it. And here you are on any given day, you've got like Amanda Lee Frank talking about drawing and, hiring artists. You've got Tony Vacinda, Tony +1, big shout out to Tony +1, been huge helping people out, how to make a press kit, things like that, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for so many, it can be daunting, couldn't it?
And part of that is with Zine Month is we kind of fleshed it out a little bit once we were putting together the site, which, by the way, the site was built by, I guess, call him Buddy at this point, Michael Myers, did a phenomenal job of it. And on the site, we wanted to kind of like put together what the core tenets of Zine Month were, in addition to just like, what a zine is and, submitting over the month of February, but also to kind of like solidify what it's about. And one of the things it was about is education. So if you go to the Zine Month page under resources, there's just a huge list of stuff that keeps getting updated even to this day of like where you can print, how to make a zine, where you can get funding, and also, most importantly, co-op resources, which something that just happened where Zine Month is not going to take credit for this because I think they've been brewing it for a while. But 4 distributors, Loot the Room, Monkey's Paw Publishing, Spear Witch, and Ratto Trattori, I believe it is, just put together a printing co-op called Chatbook Co-op, which is now like, you don't even have to go through a funding site like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. You can just go to the distributor and that's on the site.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of school here either. I know Tony was working behind the scenes and I helped get involved with it, and a bunch of other creators got involved with it, like a little mutual fund to help people fund their zines and their creations. So, Tony's the biggest mouthpiece I know. And I say that with the most admiration and love in the world, because Tony gets it done and Tony does it well. So when that comes out, Tony will definitely mention that. But I mean, I came up playing punk rock. I came up in local scenes, and there's always that moment where everyone thinks something's a really good idea, and then everyone gets involved, and then it implodes. And I have to give credit where credit's due, because you all have managed to actually get past that initial stumbling block where, everyone's going to freak out and this thing is actually not going to work. I mean, this is going much bigger than I can only imagine you thought it would be. And people are really coming together in very polite, very respectful, like helpful ways for this. Talk to me about what that's like to, experience that, because, this could have gone very wrong in a lot of ways.
It definitely could have. We recognize that, I think pretty early on, that, you can't please everybody. That's, I think a core tenet of any sort of community organization in any capacity. You're not going to please everybody, but what you can do is try to do your best and minimize the amount of conflict and everything that can come up from lots of voices coming together. A lot of emotion too, because there are so many creators who rely on this time of the year for the financial bump that like Zine Quest provided.
I mean, we were all scared. Yeah. Honestly, like kind of at the root of it was, rather than being scared about this, we wanted to do something. Because like at the end of the day, like, yes, we are putting to this, we wanted to like, put this together to protect as many people as possible. But, we're also part of that. Like, this is our bread and butter. And, as much as I loved Zine Quest, without it being there, that was, it was going to hurt us, but it was also going to hurt everyone else too. So what started as just kind of a small little, like, try to build as big of a lifeboat as you can, turned into this massive, like, it's a thing now. It's a thing.
From a more business oriented point of view, which it's not business, but we definitely tried to stay right to our tenants the entire time. Like, yes, there's always that point at which it kind of peaks when something's new. And that's kind of like the do or don't moment. And we recognized that. We recognized that we were getting a ton of feedback all at once, and we were just like, okay, we're just two people.
Yeah.
And we have to just take this day by day. You know, like the community will understand, because the community, they do the work themselves. You know, they know what it's like to take a project from like the idea, put the work into it, begin to work out the kinks before finally getting to a slightly finished project. So it was kind of one of those wait games where you have to kind of wait for it to hit its crescendo of like, everybody's here, everybody's panicking, until it kind of smoothed down into, oh, okay, this is here. We're okay. We're going to address everything that needs addressed in the time that we can. We're going to do our best. But I like to think we also made it that you can take what you need from Zemo. There are resources that if you need resources, if you need community outreach, it's all there. You can interact with it as little or as much as you want. And it does not require your full undivided, like blood, sweat, and tears if you don't want it to be. And I think that helps with the multiple different points of views and people, and just
screaming.
Yeah. All of the wonderful people that are out there, and, you know, trying to find a way for them all to find success through Zemo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the rub, isn't it? Where most people assume, wrongfully so, that an independent publisher is more than maybe two people, right?
I mean, I'm half a person on a good day, so like,
yeah. I'm nothing without coffee, but I am blessed. I mean, I'm a baby publisher at this point. I've only put out 2 things. I have my partner, George. You know, he is my partner in creation for like the last 20 years. Yet it's just the two of us, you know? And also, what's happening here with the bump of February, for what it's been for the last several years, is really important to breathe that lifeblood into creators' projects, because let's face it, when you are 1 or 2 people, you're definitely not working with the staff or the budget that Daddy Hasbro is.
Absolutely.
Right. And you also have to think about, like, you know, there's a presumption when something looks slick and good that maybe there is money behind it. And there is. It's every dime that you could scratch together and rub together from 2 nickels and all their cousins, and that's it. Now we have like no money for tacos. Like, it costs a lot of money to make a quality product. And that bump in February is really important. You know, I liken it to a driving video game, you know, where you used to pop the quarters into the slot and you're like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm playing Outrun. But if I don't get to this checkpoint, I don't have any more gas. And for a lot of indie creators, that's what the situation is. It's like, if you don't get to that next checkpoint, it's not like, well, you know, it's cool, I just open up my wallet. It's like, no one likes crowdfunding. By and large, it's like the most agonizing way to fund a project, but it's a necessity. And when that resource isn't there, you know, something else needs to happen. And thank God for Zemo, because there's a lot of creators who have that chance to keep fighting, hit that checkpoint, because there's going to be something behind them to promote and other people to rally behind them to help make sure that we get that money so we can keep on working.
Because for some of us, this is how we survive until the next month. I mean, really, you couldn't have said it better than I had anything to say. Like, that really is it.
Charlie, I'm a broadcast professional. It's not my first school dance.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough. It shows. Like,
So tell our listeners a little more about what's in store for Zemo.
At this point, it's on autopilot. Like, it's going to be what it's going to be. But for the most part, we're going to continue updating the site. We've gotten a lot of feedback on some UI changes with the site that we're going to run by Mike, and that will be implemented if he has the time. He is also he built the site and made the changes out of the goodness of his heart. So, you know, for the record, everybody who has given me feedback about the site, we are listening, and we will implement them if we can. But at the same time, a lot of this is being done for free. So, like, we'll do what we can. But for the most part, it's just going to be that. We're going to keep getting more resources. We are going to point people in the direction if they need help. And we're just going to keep uploading stuff to the site. And after that, I guess we'll start thinking about next year. Because, we put ZIMO 2022. So I guess we're going to have to work on ZIMO 2023 after this.
And I shudder to think what ZIMO 2023 will look like, because you really did throw this together very quickly, right? Like, when you and I were chatting about it, maybe like a month ago, you were like, well, we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, but we're going to do this. And this that became ZIMO ended up being a lot bigger than imagined. And now when you have a whole year to lead into the next one, man, wow.
I think for 2023, a goal of ours is going to be to increase the amount of eyes that we can get on people's projects, the amount of press that we can get. Just how can we get these out to even more and more people? How can we make sure that our site, the hub that we have created, is doing the utmost that it can for its creators? How can it
get eyes on people's projects?
Yes, get the eyes on people's projects so they can get even more funding and create a strong fan base. Because essentially, as a small creator, your fan base is your like bread and butter. They are what makes sure you have rent money, food money, that your cats have cat litter. Like, they are everything. And being able to help cultivate that for other creators, I think, is part of what ZIMO really stands for. So I really hope that we can continue that, building that, so that it can really, really blossom as the years go by.
Yeah, like, I genuinely loved Zine Quest. Like, that was not just like to make a project, but also to like just like everybody was making something. I could look at the projects, and unfortunately with that, it was Kickstarter exclusive. So now with this, it's more about the event itself instead of it being like, for a specific platform. Now it's it's the event, it's the pageantry, it's everyone coming together, making it and funding it wherever they want. And now it's more about the zines than ever.
Well, very cool. And speaking of zines, you both have zines coming out during ZIMO. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about those?
Okay, me. So, and we've kind of held off promotion on it for a little bit because we wanted to make sure ZIMO was in a good place, but now we kind of have to get our own work out there. But mine is called As the Gods Demand, and it is a reimagining of the cleric class along with about 8 different gods. So, and this is a pet peeve I've always had in role-playing games. Whenever you play as a cleric, you don't actually have to do any religious shenanigans. You just get your magic. And this is, kind of in the style of OSR, reimagining a class where you get your powers based on actions. I'll be teasing a little bit more of it and some of the wonderful weird art I've been making for it on my Twitter and on the itch page, and that will be funding in February alongside...
Yes, mine is called Trail with No Name. And essentially what it is also a reimagining of what mounts and steeds are in RPGs. If you look, for example, at the 5e book, there is one paragraph dedicated to mounts. And that's just simply not good enough for me. And I wanted to extrapolate on that because I think that the way you get around in your games is just as important as the events that your characters get up to. And I wanted to kind of expand that into what in the zine is going to be called your trail companion. So that was, your horse, or perhaps you have a dire boar that you ride around on, or
the goose.
The goose, yes. The dire goose is a big favorite. But it also looks at different things sort of from a Western point of view. It's not a Western themed zine, but it has the idea of herding livestock and what happens out on the trail, along with how bandit gangs work, who are also using trail companions of their own, and how they interact with the world and your characters. So it's hopefully a resource for games to become a little bit more interesting if you decide to ride, say, a giant dog.
Mm-hmm. And we're actually going to be releasing this alongside the Court of Exiles, which is another Feral Indie Studio project being made by our conspirator, Michelle. And we will be releasing all three as a digital bundle, kind of like what we did with Zine Quest last year, and R2, As the Gods Demand, and Trail with No Name as a physical bundle, just to make sure that, like, you know, if people want to get both, they can save a little bit of money along the side.
Very cool. And you're funding all of this on Itch.
Yes.
Well, dear listener, the link to Zemo's main site, as well as the links to Charlie and Alex's zines, will be up in the show notes. And we definitely recommend you check this out. Charlie and Alex ZIMO kicks off tomorrow, February 1st. If you're listening to this at home right on the last day of the month of January, you know you got some good stuff in store starting tomorrow all across the internet on many different funding platforms for ZIMO. Charlie, Alex, do you have any final thoughts on ZIMO?
Boy, I can't believe it did what it did.
We're so happy.
Yes.
We really are.
We're very happy. And it's, you know, once again, we are just a small part of this. This has been a community effort from the start, and I hope it remains so till the bitter, bitter end.
Well, very cool. Charlie, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. And this has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. You can find me on the Twitter and on Instagram, and sometimes on the TikTok at John McGuire RPG. I'm promoting more because I have things to promote. You could buy my zine, 3-2-1 Action Presents Rocket to Russia, over at Exalted Funeral now. You know where to find Stu at Vintage RPG on Instagram. We also are on our Patreon, patreon.com/Vintage RPG. We've got a behind-the-scenes look at Stu's book, still tentatively titled Experience Points. We've got a behind-the-scenes look at my work with 3-2-1 Action, early release episodes, some fun stuff coming up, and a killer Discord community, patreon.com/Vintage RPG. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe because your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. Stu will be back with me next week, and until then, for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.